I need to see what you can already do. Maybe you should teach me.
Your turn.
Hey guys, welcome to my review of Stargirl episode 1 and 2. And sorry I didn't get the first episode out. Last week I was a bit ill and I've been struggling to get back into the mix of things, and now I'm here. So I'm actually going to cover both of the first 2 episodes, which I hope you guys are really enjoying because it's so good to have Stargirl back. Now the premiere is titled The Murder. Now it brings the gambler back into play, but not how you think. So let's cover some of the housekeeping first. Most of you guys know I'm from the UK, so I cover all of the reviews from here. And the series was released on the CW, but the quality and the effects at the moment are still on par with the previous 2 seasons. So that's the good news. The bad news is that there's no UK release as of yet. Following Amazon Prime Season 2 agreement last year, at this current time, there's no timeline for a UK release. And you think by now that we'd have gone past this, but it's still happening. It's really strange that they really aren't doing this. But considering we live in a day and age where streaming episodes are released worldwide and things like House of the Dragons are on HBO and Sky Atlantic, and then you have all the stuff on Netflix and Disney Plus. So this is one of the rarities that we have to deal with, where Stargirl fans are struggling to get the release of the 3rd season. Now, the 3rd season subtitles Frenemies, which has a meaning of a person who pretends to be a friend, but is just in the same ways still an enemy or a rival. And we see how Courtney struggles with this as the rest of the team do. In this episode, the team isn't having any of it. And even Starman has a word with Pat about the same issues, because Pat and Courtney are now very trusting of the enemies. Well, so-called enemies. And Pat says it's Courtney's team and she makes the calls. So we really do see Courtney grow into this kind of hero who is starting to be very sympathetic to everybody's call, whether that is hero or villain. Now the first episode does a lot to show that Starman will be involved this season as he tries his best to kind of earn his place there by taking care of the home while the family's away on vacation. So he's fixed the kitchen, he's fixed the walls, he's organised the mails, he keeps the house clean and everything else. They also addressed the elephant in the room from last season, where Sylvester theorizes that he was awakened by Courtney's bond with the staff. Now he woke up in his own coffin, scary I know, screaming, he dug himself out, and I would have loved to have seen this in a flashback, but I think the reason why we're not seeing it is because probably something else might have happened, and this is probably the only way how Sylvester remembers it. But you know, he keeps saying he's fine, you know, he doesn't understand it, but it's something which I believe will come back into play down the road. Now the fact that a lot of stuff has been happening in this episode was just really set up, and it's a very good setup indeed. Now there's someone behind the scenes watching the whole thing with cameras. This could be the same person that reawoken Starman and of course killed someone in this episode, which we're going to come on to later. So I believe that that person is Mr. Bones and the Helix Institution, who is in town to witness the coexistence of heroes and villains. Now the thing about Starman is, he assures Courtney that he doesn't want the staff and he doesn't want to be Starman. But later we find out that he lies about that. So could he be lying about other things as well? Could he be lying about being awoken in his coffin and all of that stuff? I mean, we don't really know. Sylvester is a complicated man with egotistical sort of vibes about him. Now, he treated Stripe like crap. We all know that. I talked about that a lot in my videos last season. And now all of a sudden, he's a changed man. But could this be for real? Or could this be something that maybe just a ploy to do something else? I can't put my hand on it right now at the moment. And he treated Pat as someone lesser than himself and frequently reminding him that he wasn't a real member of the JSA and just his sidekick. Now, either they didn't notice the isolation it placed on Pat, or he didn't care about Pat's well-being and how it affected his so-called friend. Now, Sylvester openly apologized to Pat for not trusting his judgment when it came to killing Bruce Gordon, and he said sorry to Barbara and Courtney when he took the staff out for a joyride. So I think that we're starting to see some changes, but the jury's still out on it for me. The jury's still out. So let's focus on the death in the first episode. Stephen Sharp, aka the Gambler, returns to Blu Valley hoping to make amends, but Shade tells him to leave, and the Crusher warns Pat that he cannot be trusted. So Yolanda and Rick are displeased with Courtney's insistence to trust all of the villains, including Cindy and the Gambler, living in Blu Valley, obviously, and Cindy's inclusion of the JSA. The whole dynamic with Cindy joining the JSA is fun. I'm finding that really, really good because Courtney's sticking up for her. Beth is kind of somewhere in the middle, and it's starting to get weirder now with Artemis trying to join the team. And the Gambler writes a letter for his daughter Rebecca, who's actually Hazard in the comics. And he discovers surveillance cameras placed throughout Blu Valley, and he's killed by a power which is unknown. The JSA find him dead, and they see Cindy standing over him with his gun, professing her innocence that she didn't kill him. So we have a mystery straight out of the hat, making this a fantastic first episode. It's either the old ISA group that killed the Gambler or Mr. Bones. The question is, why would they want him dead? I mean, all he wanted to do was redeem himself and then find his daughter Rebecca. As I said, Rebecca plays Hazard in the comics. She's an anti-hero, and she has sonic abilities, which she uses in conjunction with her special dice to influence a probability that she wishes. She can cause good luck, harmful incidents, depending on whoever the person is. It turns out that reforming the villains, also, they don't trust one another, especially the Crocs and the Shade in particular. They're very wary of the Gambler, and his return into town is something that they question. But yet, they all seem to trust each other. That's what I'm not really sure of. Like the Crocs, they trust the Shade, and they trust Cindy now. So they all kind of trust each other, but none of them trust the Gambler. So what does that tell you? I know when the ISA was in sync, the Gambler was always doing his own thing, as was the Shade and many of the other people as well. So I really don't understand that distrust at the moment. So we have to wait and see how they all get on with each other now that the Gambler is dead. Now, Rick and Yolanda have got this guilty until proven innocent sort of vibe. Whereas, and by the way, Rick did fix the hourglass. Remember I was saying last season about how he was doing well in school and those classes he took last year paid off. So I'm glad that they have sorted that out at the moment by showing us that it's working again, but it is on the fritz. Sometimes he's getting 12 minutes, sometimes he's getting 47 minutes, and at the moment his power is unreliable, and that means that he doesn't like using it. But with Beth Chappell, she remains a vital part of the team, and we see her appearance looking at her comic costume, which was a nice Easter egg. But without it, Beth and Courtney would be left to manage this distrustful teammates alone. So on to the second episode, when they found Cindy standing near the Gambler. She claims that she was just checking to see if the Gambler was working with sort of his No Limit gang again. Now Beth discovers that the Gambler was stabbed in the heart and not shot. And this makes Shiv our number one primary suspect. Not just because the Gambler was killed by a sharp object, but Beth stated that whoever has the laptop was the person who killed. And guess what? Cindy has the laptop. The second clue is Paula tells Barbara about the Crocs and they're innocent. We didn't do it. But at the end of the episode, Sportsmaster says they'll never get away with it. I don't think he's talking about the murder. I think he's talking about them getting out of jail, making some deal, and the Crocs hired the gang for Artemis's audition. So that might be a sort of red herring in terms of the murder part of the mystery. Now, the thing that got me into this episode was how out of touch and brash Starman was. I mean, Courtney has Sylvester apologizing to Shade, but this just leads into another fight where Starman really hurts the Shade. And for those of you who forgot, his biggest strength is the darkness and the shadows, which is the Shade. And his biggest weakness is the light. Now, the bright ray of light that emits from the cosmic staff is no match for him And we know that he's often talked about Starman and Stargirl is his Achilles heel. So he was really hurt in this episode because of the power of the cosmic staff. Now, we did see Stargirl level up in this episode as well, which I thought was pretty good. Previously, we've seen her fly. We've seen her agility levels have been off the charts, but that's about it, really. But in the comics, Starman and Stargirl, when wearing the cosmic converter belt, had enhanced strength, speed, agility, and stamina, as well as the ability to protect shooting stars. They also had the ability of cosmic energy manipulation, which again we haven't really seen in the show. So we've seen kind of a fraction of that in the first 2 seasons, so there's plenty of growth for Stargirl moving forward to show us more abilities. Another thing we saw was Sylvester sitting on his bed talking to the staff. Yes, Cosmo was listening, and not just that, but he was able to respond with light flashes of which Starman obviously understood from their previous time together. So this means that he's not really telling Courtney everything. There's still things that he's leaving in his back pocket, because Courtney doesn't communicate with the staff in the way that Starman does. Yeah, sure, she talks to it, but it doesn't really talk back to her. So I want to see a little bit more of that dynamic. I do like when Courtney said to Starman that the most important thing Pat ever taught her was that life can't be just about being Stargirl. She needs to be Courtney Whitmore too. And that's something that Starman needs to learn. He needs to sort of understand how to live a normal life. Cosmo 2, the staff, showed up in this episode when Starman went crazy after the shade, and Courtney demanded that the staff was returned, and Cosmo ran back to her quickly without a second thought. I guess, guys, this shows that the staff's allegiance is Courtney. And that's it. There was one scene with Mike and Jakeem. You know, we got to see Thunderbolt trying to learn who the killer's name was. And I like that Mike was being inventive and tried to figure out the question first before he led to trying to get an answer. Because he knows how meticulous Thunderbolt is when it comes to providing the right answers. But it only leads to learning that the killer has many names. And again, this goes back to Mr. Bones. And remember, you can't ask the pen this same question twice. We also got to see the evil Norwegian grandparents of Cameron again, and he's really struggling in school and is about to give up. But they basically just said to him that school isn't important for his life and that he's going to have to live a more important part with their family bond and the power that he's yet. We didn't see him use his ice power, by the way, but we did enjoy Mrs. Croc and Barbara trying to bake a cake. I thought first Barb was only joking about her not being able to bake. So maybe they should have bought a cake instead. So guys, in this episode we have mystery, we have intrigue. But my verdict of the killer is pretty easy. And that is, it is Mr. Bones. You know, he could reanimate, or could he control the dead? It may be why Grundy isn't coming back yet, and why Starman was brought back from the dead, of which we know nothing about. So there's a lot of intrigue in there. But I'm going to give these first 2 episodes an 8 out of 10. Solid, solid, solid. And I'm so glad it's back. And it's everything that we dreamed that it would be. And even more, to be honest, because there's a big mystery now. And I hope that they play into that. And they also play into the dynamic of Cindy with the JSA as well. Because she's all in. Cindy's like, look, I don't want to go down that road before, but we do see her experimenting on herself. So maybe what the Dragon King, her father, was doing to her was only temporary, and that she has to continue to take these sort of formulas in order for her to keep her powers. So I hope that they kind of really dig into that, because she hasn't really communicated that with Courtney. And if they're going to be besties, or if they're going to get along in some way, the communications has to open between them. So let me know what you think of it, guys, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace out.